I'm going to make this we're going to move super quick, and the point of what I want to talk about tonight is exactly what Rob kind of went through, which is kind of the idea of getting things done, and how actually I and my company go about doing that, as far as the company as a whole, the plan, getting things down to kind of a weekly list of stuff to do, and then specifically probably the most actionable piece that I use in my daily life is the thing that I just showed you, which I'll show you in more detail here in a minute, but is the shit that I have to get done every single day, and how do I prioritize that? And I heard a couple comments here, someone, I think it was you, saying, I don't remember what you were saying, but anyways, yeah. The important thing, I think, and one of the biggest challenges that we face in figuring out what we need to do and just continuing to make that forward progress and getting lots of stuff done is often just knowing what is that next thing that you need to work on, right? Like a couple comments were made, I feel the same way often, which is, you kind of get something out of the way, you answer an email and you're like, oh, achieved. Now what do I do? Oh, go look at this video over here or something like that, right? So like if we could actually know with a better degree of certainty what we need to do next and in what order, and kind of expand that forward, even if it's just on a daily basis, I think that would help us actually get a lot more done. And it certainly has for me. I'm just going to kind of take you through my process on this. So, I don't know, the financing is a little bit weird right now, but that doesn't really relate to this discussion. This is a hilarious video that I'll show you real quick. So Rob was talking about kind of the ridiculousness of startups and how everything is confusing and uncertain, and to a certain degree, I think this video kind of sums it up. We actually have internet here. Well,
You do.
I do. Sure. Did that gift exist anymore? All right, we'll come back to that. So, anyways, the point of what I want to talk to is actually how do you work, what ultimately matters. And Rob talked, I know this class and last class, about instrumentation and dashboards, right? Does everyone know what Domo is? Or did you guys hear from a Domo guy? Did he come in
Some
here?
did from a venture trends class.
Yeah. Does anyone work for Domo or have worked for Domo? Is anyone personal friends with Josh James?
Good, because now you are on video, by the way.
Anyways,
We love you, Josh. You're doing great. Keep it up.
so, in my mind, it goes back to Rob's kind of one of the last points here, which is this paradox of, we can all measure all this stuff, and we can do that really well, but that doesn't necessarily help us actually figure out how to get from the 0 to the 1, right? How do we create something out of nothing? And in Josh James' case, right, this guy was the founder of Omniture. When Omniture was acquired by Adobe, it was the biggest single venture return in the year that it was acquired by Adobe for $1.6 billion. It returned more money to more people than any other company that received investment that year. And as you may know, Omniture is in the business of analytics, right? Like deep, deep stuff for websites and online businesses and stuff like that. So Josh is kind of like the dude as far as analytics go to begin with. Then he goes off and starts this company Domo because he wants to reinvent executive dashboards. Well, Josh has raised a total of $125 million. And for all intents and purposes, they're still stumbling around trying to figure out how to actually make this business work. And that's somewhat of an unfair assessment because they do have customers, they are selling some product, but nowhere near the $800+ million valuation that they did this last $60 million round at. So my only point here is that the dude, with respect to reporting and dashboards and all these aspects of the company, he's still running into these very challenges that, if any of us assembled into a team and ran off and tried to do a business tonight, we would be faced with as well. And just as an aside, we recently had their VP sales in our office and went through a variety of their numbers, which I'm sure Josh would they also just really aren't that effective at their job. And that's not to say that these people aren't super smart, but again, it's just we all run into the same issues. No matter if you have $0 and zero name behind you, or Josh James with 125. So, anyways, we're all faced with the same challenges. I really like this quote. It actually came out of the Getting Things Done book. There's only 2 problems in life: you know what you want and you have no idea how to get it, or you don't know what you want. And I feel like that's kind of at the crux of, I don't know, at least what I feel like I've faced with my companies and the ongoing challenges of building a company and everything else, like where I want to move, family stuff, relationships, all that kind of thing. And I'm just assuming that probably these same sort of questions are one that you've dealt with as well. So, with respect to building a company, Rob's kind of talked about this, plan A to plan B or plan A to completion, right? Like, oftentimes it's better have a good idea, and then eventually you're going to get to a pile of cash. And, what's not really, what's often not discussed, because it's hard unless you actually get out there and do it, and then even that is exceedingly hard, is that there's a shitload of work in between, right? Like, the idea, which is probably bullshit anyways, and then the pile of money, those are just 2 points in time, right? And there's lots of work and lots of stuff that happens in between, and that's really what no one talks about is, you're there at the start, and you've got a tremendous amount of stuff that you actually need to do to achieve any amount of outcome. Just as, I don't remember, did I talk about my companies here? I don't even remember. So I'm working on a software company where, as of April, it'll be year 3. We've gone through, a few different business models, a few different products. We're excited about what we're doing right now. It seems to be great, but again, standing here, I would absolutely never have been able to tell you that, all right, up there is the end of the first business model. We threw the first product out. We went on to the second. It sucked. We went, it's just a almost never-ending progression of problem solving and experimentation, and ultimately your ability to get up and over that thing is dependent upon your ability to do work, right?
Yeah, it's like, in some ways, I guess by analogy, you guys are familiar with the theory of relativity and Einstein's, elegant equation, mc squared, where you throw inside that thing is the thing called the cosmological constant, right? The cosmological constant is just the thing that makes the equation balance, right? It's just like magic happens here, right? And in many ways, this issue of work as it relates to startups is the startup version of cosmological constant. You just take as a given, right? Like, oh yeah, well, no one likes to talk about the details or the deep ditch digging or the actual effort it takes to do the work. We just gloss all that over and pretend that the most important part is like these other factors like raising financing and having a great idea and building a great team. Because those are easier to talk about. You can package them into books. No one wants to read a book called You Can't Do Any Work and That's Why You're Failing. That's not the book that anyone will buy. But that is startup cosmological constant is the only thing. It's massive, massive, massive work punctuated by epic failure and then a resilience to start digging ditches again, right? It's like you dig a ditch, right? And then you discover, metaphorically speaking, that it's the wrong ditch and it gets covered over and you just have to dig again. That's been my experience of like the n number of startups I've done. It's just full-on ditch digging in the face of abject suffering and fear. And then then you go public.
Yeah, pile of cash. And so just real quick, so I look back over the course of the last. I'm going to come back to this in a minute, but so 3 years, right? Like specifically, what have I had to do over the last 3 years?
Wow, so this thing allows you to.
I've checked out, and that's only November 2012 right there.
So this is a record of everything that you've been doing that you've written down over 3 years.
Yeah. So we're looking at January right there.
Okay, you go.
So, anyways, we'll come back to that. It's actually something everyone will do. So, anyways, the point being is that over the 3 years for doing this company, it's been, I think, about 10,000 plus distinct tasks, right? Where a distinct task is something like, produce this thing, get back to this person.
Have you ever gone back and reviewed those?
No. I just went back for your other class, so I know how many tickets were checked off.
Okay, I'd be interested in why have you not audited your own tasks?
I don't know, I really should. I think, well, let's maybe get back to that.
Okay.
So, how do we achieve success, right? And I think it's relatively simple. I actually want to talk about some specific ways that we actually go about doing this tonight, which we can move through very quickly. But we need to know what work needs to be done, right? Like this, even if you're still at 0 and you haven't kind of jumped the shark to your newfound glorious business, you still need to know what work needs to be done, right? Like even if we end up being wrong, we need to know what that work needs to be. We need to know when, in what order it needs to be done. I think there's a definite importance to order, obviously. Some even for in the point being things that aren't necessarily scheduled events, right? I think generally speaking, if we don't actually put thought into the order of things, we're exceedingly inefficient. And then finally, we need to be efficient about getting it done, right? Like in the context of any business, I would say, but it's particularly acute in the context of the startup, you have a pile of cash that is going through an hourglass. And when, ultimately you can put more cash in the top, but, you need to figure your business out before that thing runs out, or else you're just dead. So I think it's this simple. And, myself and Rob and some of our other friends and peers who are involved with startups or projects of various sorts, these are the things that we've been trying to figure out and improve for ourselves as a part of our own craft. And if you look at me 5 years ago, I had some relative success with some startups, but at the same time, the work, the craft side of it was something that, I was only just then beginning to think about.
I find it interesting that you didn't put the need to know how to do it. Is that an assumption? Like, you only do what you know? Or
Yeah, I think that's presupposed here. So if you don't know how to do it, you're screwed.
but I mean, usually you are exploring new concepts in a startup.
Well, what is the how, right? So like, I'm constantly amazed with, and it's going to sound like very harsh criticism. People have things they're good at that they stick to, but like, we're relaunching a website. I was telling you about this tonight, right? So we got together last week. Everyone's bitching and moaning about how we need this new website. So I'm like, fine, I will do a new website and I will have it done by yesterday. Right? Actually, it wasn't done yesterday. It's going to be done tomorrow. It's basically like a week. And a couple of the guys just looked confused because they're like, one of the guys was a former COO of Domo and brand marketing at Novell and some other stuff. And, I can just tell he's thinking like, when we relaunched a website, that was like, it was a branding exercise. There, we had to go get bids from agencies, and it took months, and it was hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so in this case, the how, which is, I think, at least I see this a lot with people, is just simply a matter of like, oh, you don't know this thing exists, this tool that I can use that like anyone could use, So, I don't know. I think it goes back to Rob's point, which is in addition to doing work, we always have to be learning, and we have to be learning through our work. Like anyone in this room can do what I did with this website, but probably only a very small percentage, I'm guessing, would be aware of the tool sets that I use to get it done. Fair enough? So, all right, I want to tell you about what we do. There's 3 pieces here. There's a plan that we do. So, in the context of our company, no time horizon is greater than a quarter. And this is also something that I do personally. I do all these steps for myself personally. Unlike Rob, it's not so much focused on reporting and analytics. And I probably should be. I'm a little bit more interested in, kind of to your point, of like, all right, 3 months, that's a relatively long period of time. What are my goals, and how am I gonna put myself in the best position to achieve those? So the three components are plan, these things called OKRs, and then getting things done is what gets it down to the daily level, because then, wow, I'm just taking some measures.
Hey Cam,
Yeah.
is that David Allen
Yes.
getting things done? Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I'll mention that in a minute here. All right, so what's in the plan? I'm really glad to hear that Rob is kind of poo-pooing Mean, because Mean, like, I don't know. I've been very suspicious of it as well. Hopefully some of you have. It's just kind of it's the flavor of now, right, with respect to how things are done. If you rewind the clock 5 years, it was raise a big amount of money, your business plan follows this formula, those sorts of things. It'll be something different in 2 to 3 years' time. My first slide talking about all the startups that are failing, it seems pretty clear we're on like a downward swing as far as financing goes, so it may be another few years until something interesting happens. But I still think the plan's important. Gary Jentz, who came in here and talked about watches and stuff before, he works with me now at my company, and we work on some other projects in addition to he still does his watch company. But we've produced a number of plans over the past year for various projects and businesses, and what's great about working with Gary on this and great about producing the plan is it gets everything out of our head, and we both just decided, look, if we get a certain way, way down the road and we throw everything out the window, like, so be it. We're not going to get down on the process of doing a plan. A plan is still important for getting everything else, out of your head, getting a team, a group of people actually together around an idea and moving forward on that. So, I think the components of the plan are very simple. What are you trying to achieve? What needs to be done? And how are you going to get it? Again, to your point, like, okay, we've got something we want to do. How are we actually going to get that done? Which is particularly important when you're dealing with a group of people.
So the note in that what Cameron is talking about around planning is the plan is so just again continuing the notion of the startups or a series of conversations, right? The plan is just another conversational nexus. In this case, you just described the conversational nexus of Gary and Cameron being able to have a shared dialogue about what it is that's going to be accomplished. So a plan happens to have the phenomenological look of a piece of paper with a bunch of stuff on it, right? And that's only ephemera. That's the least interesting part of the plan. The part of the plan that's interesting is all the conversations that got generated in making the plan and the conversations that get generated as a result of the delta between the plans. So in other words, for your notes, the interesting thing in life is not precisely executing against the plan. It's the conversation around the gap between what didn't get done and why. Sometimes what didn't get done is because the plan ought to change. Sometimes it's because we made a mistake. But the point is, it's the dialogue that's important. That's what I'm trying to communicate here, is that all these things are about generating new types of conversations in your team about what's possible.
So if anyone here, if we decided we're going to go do a business, and we're going to start to plan it tonight, this is what I would want to do. It's a Google Doc. I mean, it is a general framework, but I pulled it out of my ass basically. And there's very simple components to it. So this was for a company called Miro that produces notebooks. It's run and owned by a friend of ours. And I came to him and basically said, they only did retail. I believe that online could be a viable channel for them. And I said, give me a couple quarters and a tiny little bit of resources to explore that. And so this was the first plan that we put together for Q4 last year, which is when we began. And some very, very simple shit. So start out with a credo. Again, I think it's very important that everyone, no matter if it's terms of you or a group of people, understand why they're here and why they're doing this thing. Like, there has to be a reason for it, for something to be of value. So for us, these were just things that when we sat down and reviewed the plan at the beginning of Q4, I wanted everyone to be on board on it. I kind of already knew that because I just wanted to hire people, but focus on creating lasting returns, not short-lived gains. We own the plan, it's execution, not someone or something else. We hold ourselves and our output to the highest standards, and creativity, collaboration, and experimentation are central to our process. This is also, by the way, something that we reviewed with the owner, who wasn't going to be a direct participant in the process, but him sitting in the room, hearing us go over this, and him not objecting was his tacit approval towards how we were going to run our program, how we were going to account for it, and then the shit that we were going to do. So, anyways, Credo, accountability, I'm talking about OKRs here, this was kind of new to a couple members of the group. Basically, we're going to get together twice a week, review everyone's progress, and look at our weekly goals, and then how we're actually going to be reporting back. Friday afternoon, each person gathers up reports associated with their area of responsibilities. Could be ads, could be SEO, shares that with the group for a 15, 30-minute conversation prior to the Friday OKR. And then, just on to your point, this is the what and the how, right? So we said, okay, we want to do SEO, the objectives, the tools we're going to deploy for that, content, email, partnerships, social media, advertising, and some miscellaneous stuff. So like, this isn't rocket science, right? Like, anyone here could do this for any business or any objective or any project, but simply taking a few hours to think about it, think about why we're doing what we're doing, how we're going to account for it, what and how we're going to need to do it, and then getting everyone around the table to spend 45 minutes or an hour to go through it and agree on it, that is a closed loop.
So can I explain? Yeah. So do you mind if I talk about the research or theory behind this? So underneath, so when Cameron says it's not rocket science. What is and this is the iceberg. What's the underlying theoretical constructs that drive using such a trivial tool? Why does it work? Here's two pieces of theory that help to build this in. First is I've been making the case for the attention-based theory of the firm, which is at the earliest stages of organizational life, your executive attention, the things to which you attend, given that attention is finite, are the most important things for you to focus on. So you can, if it's the case, you have two fungible resources, time, one non-fungible, which is your attention, and one fungible, which is time. So things that you want to focus on for your team that want all your attention, you want them on the plan, and you want to look for opportunities to buy more attention by creating time, by getting rid of that stuff or not doing it or outsourcing it or finding some cheap hack to do it. Underneath all this stuff is stuff that Michael Ensley, our old friend who was my original thesis advisor at RPI, and I think you had it in his class, is that right?
Yeah.
So, as it turns out, there's only a few interesting constructs that are directly correlated with growth, company growth. So at the earliest stages of a company, things like revenue growth or employee growth become proxies for success. So we're just going to use those proxies for success. And as it turns out, one of the few things associated with revenue growth and employee growth, you think having a plan is associated with it. As it turns out, levels of human capital, intelligence isn't associated with it. All of these things that you would imagine that would be the usual suspects that would be, well, I'll just hire the best and brightest and this thing will be associated to it. No, as it turns out, something really odd that Michael Ensley found, which is something called shared strategic vision, which is a construct that he's created, which relates to this notion of the attention-based theory of the firm. What shared strategic vision is, very simply, is the degree to which the individuals in the team have a shared understanding of the mission, objectives, and key results of the organization. That's it. Sounds incredibly dumb, incredibly silly. As it turns out, it's really hard to measure, which is why no one can do it empirically. But as it turns out, new venture teams with a higher degree of overlap between what they were supposed to be doing and why performed crazily better than normal teams, which operated in default mode, not having any conversations about their shared strategic vision. So this stuff has been replicated by a lady at Stanford named Kathy Eisenhart, who also focuses on teams. And the basic argument is rich weekly conversations with your team with the intention of generating shared strategic vision week to week is one of the few things that we can absolutely say for sure has an influence on new venture growth.
Well,
Pretty weird.
how was that measured?
How was it shared? How was what measured?
The shared.
Strategic vision.
Yeah.
In Ensley's case, a week-to-week questionnaire about what the and then a questionnaire that had a series of Likert scales and then free-form answer boxes that he measured week to week with these teams. And the sample was like 60 or 70 teams that he worked with. So 60 to 70 new venture teams, all between 2 and 6 people, all running week to week and all being surveyed every week.
Is that a paper?
Yeah.
Publicly available?
Yeah. If you're interested in the paper, I will remember to get it for you. So that's, and curiously and weirdly, this simple thing, which is getting everyone, said another way, everyone together on the same page week to week as you're navigating this uncertain environment is one of the most crucial things associated with growth, new venture growth.
And it's critical to leadership, even though it's a very simple thing. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. So, quarterly tab. So what we do on a quarterly basis, we create one of those plans. Again, it's very informal, but I do want it to be comprehensive. We review the plan with the entire team. In the case of my software company, that is more than a notebook, so we get everyone together for that. And as part of that review meeting, we establish everyone's quarterly objectives and key results. So we're going from basically the plan that covers the 3 months down to the OKRs, which are going to bring us down to the week. So we saw some of these guys earlier. John Doerr up there on the left, 2 Google guys, and Mark Pincus from Zynga. So John Doerr, partner of Kleiner Perkins, former IBM salesman, but basically when he went to go put his money into Google and Zynga, he told these guys, again, these are 2 engineers. I don't know who Mark Pincus is. Looks like he works out a lot, but anyways, he came in and basically said, this is what I worked on at IBM for purposes of, and I don't think it was something that IBM would formally adopted at any point, but anyways, it was John's idea of how a tech company, how a great tech company should actually organize itself. And it's this idea of objectives and key results. If you Google stuff, if you Google OKRs, I've written a few blog posts on them. You won't find much written from the Google guys. You will find some interviews from Mark Pincus. He's like, if you listen on his quarterly analyst calls, he will talk about his OKRs, like actually mention them by name in the call. That's how he organizes his company. So what are they? I think, first and foremost, it's everyone contributing towards the plan. The way that Mark talks about it, which I think is the best, and I probably ultimately got it from John, was that it's the idea of making everyone the CEO of something. Right, so it doesn't matter if you're, in the case of our notebook, little marketing crew, 3 people, or our 12-person software company, or your 10,000 plus Google. Everyone, from the secretary on up to the CEO, should understand what the plan is and how they're aligned towards actually contributing towards it. Another point, I don't remember if I touched on it, is that within all these organizations, everyone's OKR is available to everyone within the organization. So if you're an employee of Zynga, you can go on, I don't know what they use, we use Google Docs, just say they use Google Docs. You can go on Google Docs and see exactly what Mark's quarterly and weekly OKRs are and how he's performing against those from anyone in the company. So very, very transparent. So there's 2 pieces, objectives and key results. Objectives is the stretch goal. This is, we want to be #1 in our market. Whereas key results, each objective has 3 key results associated with it. And the key results are actually how you're going to get that done, right? So we're going to go acquire the #2 player. We're going to go poach these employees from this company, and we're going to raise a ton of money, right? And they have to have a value associated with them. So your objective can be this, huge thing, and your key results, that's where the rubber meets the road. That's how you're actually going to do
So if you guys looked at I have OKRs that I showed you right on the side. If you're paying attention, one of my objectives this year is to demonstrate the discipline and capacity of a world-class scholar. My key results for this year, notice I'm rolling them right off the top of my head, right, is 4 3-hour blocks of writing every week. 80% of my time during writing blocks has to be working on field shaping papers. So I know which papers are shaping the field and which are incremental. 80% of my time ought to be spent on field shaping papers. And the third one being reading. I have also 3 hours of reading every week coupled with 1 hour of stata. And that's, if I do that, I'm spending 12 hours a week on scholarship, and doing so in a disciplined way. And those are either done or not done. At the end of 2013, right, there's no confusion about whether those are done or not. You should be able to spot them. They're measurable.
I want to show you mine real quick that I just did for this last.
So in the case of my athletic, what does it mean? My objective is to have a breakthrough in my life in terms of my athletic activity, my well-being. What does that mean? It means generating 300 watts of power and 160 pounds of body weight, and that implies not less than 9% body fat over 20 minutes. That would be a new benchmark for me. My flexibility benchmark is being able to do the side splits by July 23rd. And then my third key result is the ability to do a series of CrossFit level 2 exercises over the course of 1 month. Right? And again, these are coming right off the top of my head. Why? Because I look at this stuff all the time, right? That's guiding my day-to-day choices. If something, it guides my decision as to whether or not I have 2 slices of pizza or 1 when we all go out to Stone Ground afterwards. Okay. Do you guys do that? Do you have that in your head? Get it in your head. Do that.
So, yet again, we're back in Google Docs. I set up a spreadsheet. This is just mine, so we're just about to bust into Q2, right, in April.
That's right.
So this is what we as a team get to, again, constantly, not overdoing it, but making sure that at least on a weekly basis, we're getting important people that relate to each other together to understand and confirm what the hell it is that we're working on. Right? So for me, that is our management team, my partner, our CEO, our VP sales, our head of engineering, and usually 1 or 2 other people, where we all come to the meeting Monday morning with our weekly OKRs laid out. I don't have quarterly ones laid down yet for Q2, because we always begin kind of the new quarter a couple weeks early, so this was this week, obviously it's not Q2 yet. I will be putting these in place before next Monday. But just to give you a sense of kind of like what a week looks like, especially now that it's Thursday, this is what I put down for a Monday meeting. Get the new website live, I was talking about that. Get us in a position to sell and get inside sales up and running. So these gray guys, those are my objectives. So they're not, this is on a weekly level, so it's not like be number 1 in the universe, right? But they're still pretty big. I gotta build a fucking website, I gotta do a bunch of sales stuff, and then we just hired a couple people, and I've got, inside sales is like a totally new thing to me. I gotta figure out so I gotta get that up and running. So the key results for each of these, the website, I gotta work with our designer to produce visual assets and make tweaks. I have to produce all remaining content, including videos, copy, and other stuff. And I've got to button it up and get it live by the end of the week. Right? So all those things are relatively specific. They kind of have a value associated with them. Get us in a position to sell, we need to work with our VP sales to complete the sales presentation, do a complete pipeline review with him, and work to schedule meetings with all of my active prospects.
So these would not, by the way, these would not satisfy my definition of measurable. At the Foundry, these would not be measurable. So do a complete pipeline review, which is number 10. So I'm just continuing to be a jerk, so because I can't, and not in a bad way. This is really cool. But for me, the pipeline review is, so I know that you're meeting with Lindell, whoever that is. So complete means how many opportunities are currently in your pipeline. That's why we're doing the review. Because you don't know. See, that's the interesting conversation, right? Why? And so do you mind if we probe on this for a second? Why don't you know what your pipeline is?
Because the week prior we fired our VP sales and we hired a new one.
Got it. So that's interesting. You see how helpful this would be if you were a board member or a leader or whatever? So there's a couple ways that conversation could have gone. One is a simple way, which is a more interesting metric would have been, you need to put in, let's pretend that is your pipeline more than 30?
Yeah.
Great, so if your pipeline is more than 30, and you got to do a complete one with Lindell, how long is it going to take you to look at each one of those items?
Well, it ended up taking
Per
3 hours.
right? So
Yeah.
that's how. So I'm able to judge your work because you're not numericizing it. I need to know how many it is that are to have any sense of reasonability as to whether you're going to do that or whether I can help you with the trick. In your case, what we just learned is something interesting, which is you just shot your VP of sales, and it sounds like your VP of sales got shot because that chunk doesn't.
Yeah, where's the number?
Because there's no pipeline, right?
Why.
That's why that happened. Okay, so let's try to find another one. Produce all remaining content. Number 5, C5.
Yeah.
So how many videos, how much copy, what's going on there? That's too big.
Okay. I don't expect a greater degree of value associated with that. Like I'm not, it may be appropriate to expect that of a member of your team.
Yeah, by the way, we're just having a dialogue. We're making this up.
So,
we didn't know this is going to
For
happen.
me,
It's
where we're
none of
going
it's
to get, where we're going to get to is the next step is of course taking these weekly priorities and objectives and key results and breaking them down into specific actionable tasks that you actually need to do to achieve something like whatever the hell that one was. Produce all remaining content. Right. So for me, we can look at. I've set up a project here for relaunching the website, which is basically my association of getting a new website live.
Yep.
And this is where I break down everything.
Got it.
So when I put the objectives in on Sunday night, the fact of the matter is sometimes you don't really know the extent of the work you need to do. Right? So all these yellow guys are things I need to get done tonight, but we can see kind of the progression of it here, take another pass through the outline, figure out how we're going to move this blog content over, ask our designer where to find nice stock photography, email Steve about finding another communications designer, start framing up the website, complete more detailed content outline, do a call, outline visual assets for the designer to create, outline videos that need to produce for the new site. So that was only yesterday.
Yeah, so what this helps me do, by the way, so again, it's not the task or the documents, the conversation about the thing that matters. So there are two classes of problems here. One is it's a task for which, like Cameron could tell me, he could have had another conversation with me called, I know I need to produce enough more video, more text, and more assets for the website. But today, I don't know how many, I don't know how much. But that's not what he's saying here. Because he flips over to things, he says, oh no, actually I do. And I know how many there are. There's 9 things that I have to do. And then because he's logged this material and this cool this thing that I didn't know about, I can also happen to see the velocity of his work. So here you're telling me how fast that goes. So I can infer a few things from this, which is you know what you need to do, right? And I have a sense of how fast you're working on that. So that's cool.
Yeah. And let's be clear, right? No matter if you're the CEO, the chairman of the board, or the lowest man on the totem pole, all of this is just about you being as great a worker as you possibly can. In particular, developing your craft over the long term, being efficient, knowing what and when and how, ultimately you want to do your work.
Because you want to know whether something's, is it ambiguous and unknown? Is it uncertain? Is it totally known? Where does it fit in here? Is it risky? Is it not risky? Can we go back to your weekly? So,
Yeah.
So I view get the new website live. That goes into the known. You know what you need to do. You know what task you need to perform in. I view that as completely riskless. It's just a matter of I only care about do you have enough time, and I can actually buy time potentially.
And by the way, this is similar to the discussion we would have as a team on Monday.
Yeah, we're mocking the conversation that happens every Monday morning at a foundry with all the different CEOs probing that, going, okay, I buy that you can get that website live in the time you said you could. Okay, I get that. Cool.
All right, jumping back into this.
Thanks for being flexible about
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So one thing we've learned, by the way, is like we used to just put this in a Google Docs template like this, where we had like areas for everyone, and people would input them prior to our Monday meeting, and you know we'd all be happy, and people would have their stuff in there, and then it's in a Google Doc, right? So you're basically not looking at it until the following Monday morning, sometimes like 10 minutes before the meeting, and you're like, oh shit, I gotta get my stuff there. So we just decided this week that, again, like, you know, low tech wins the day. Everyone maintains their own individual OKR sheet, like I just showed you with mine, so that's my spreadsheet. And at every meeting, you bring a printed copy, and then we post that up on a bulletin board outside one of our offices for everyone. So just a way to keep it front and center. And I do these for myself, just as Rob does, and if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. Right, and it's important to keep this stuff front and center and keep it reasonable, right? Like, I don't know if you've noticed, but for quarterly or weekly, we're only talking 3 objectives and 3 associated results.
So as an example of like keeping it front and center for me, because I don't have anyone to keep me accountable around my own work, a lot of the things that I just talked about, there's a spot where I stand every morning and grind coffee, like and I know, and I lean against the back of my sink and I grind coffee, and right in front of me across the kitchen is a ginormous Post-it note, one of those erasable whiteboard Post-it notes, the sticky ones, and my weekly goals are on the left-hand side, and my quarterly goals are on the right-hand side, and I see them as a forcing function every morning. It sounds stupid, but you know, most of the stuff is not complicated. And every morning I forget, and every morning I grab my coffee and I remember, because I'm a human being, because that's how humans work.
Totally. So we talked about monthly or quarterly tasks back here, right? Creating a plan, establishing everyone's OKRs. You can also do that on a monthly basis. Weekly tasks for us, so we get together, on Sundays everyone inputs their next week's OKR, scores the prior week. Every key result gets a 0, a 1, or a -1. 1 completed, 0 partially completed, -1 not completed. I also do a complete getting things done review on Sunday. So again, for anyone who's familiar with David Allen's framework, getting things done, that's what we're going to talk about in a second. And then on Monday mornings, we get together as a team, review those OKRs, review performance for everyone from last week, and go over what they're going to be working on this week. So finally, I just wanted to talk about getting things done. So if you don't care about a plan and you don't care about OKRs, I think it's hokey, like that's fine. But like if there's one piece of this trifecta that I think can have the most positive immediate effect on your life, if you're not already doing this, is this Businessy Guides framework called Getting Things Done. And it's super simple. So it's about basically organizing everything you. Does anyone know what GTD is here? Is anyone using it?
Yeah.
Anyone else? Someone said yes. Cool. So in brief, I don't really want to talk about GTD, but just kind of the tools and how you can put it to use and benefits. Organize everything, so our brains are totally screwed up. Like we're thinking that we have to buy soap at the same time that I have to fire my BP sales. Like it's very messed up. So organize everything in your life, big and small, business, personal, whatever. The second point is the critical one. Know exactly, with relative more certainty than you probably have now, what you need to work on next. Right? So that's that little app that I have. Like I do my organization in the morning. That's my Post-it note. And my goal is, unless it has to change, to trust in my planning earlier in the morning when I was actually thinking about what I had to do, to believe that whatever's on there is what I got to focus on next. And again, if you want to know more, just get the book. It's very short. It's very easy to read. So I've kind of been showing you like what I've been doing, but this is my GTD implementation. So, and the nice thing about it these days is like if you read the book, he's talking about like physical papers and file folders and all that kind of stuff, and those still play a role, but like the internet and software didn't really exist to the degree that it does today when he wrote that book a decade ago or whatever. So this little app called Things is unfortunately Mac only. You can modify Evernote for, there's a bunch of good blog posts on how to use Evernote for GTD for PCs. But I have this on my computer, I have it on my phone, and I have my iPod, or my iPad. So everything I have to do goes in the inbox. So throughout the day, like, you know, I'll say, like, right now I need to, email Rob, thank you note, for speaking in class. So that's something that I need to do. I'm not going to think about where to file it. I'm not going to think about when it needs to be done. I'm just going to make sure it's out of my head. It ends up in the inbox. First thing every morning, at least during the week, and on the weekends, personally. But before I do anything else, before I look at my email, I go through a review process to decide what's the set of stuff that I need to work on today. So that always starts in the inbox. We need to bring the inbox to 0. So, you know, this email to Rob, that's something that I need to do when I'm in front of my computer. Get back to Doug at Interwest. I actually have to do that today. And have business cards created for Jen Slendell and Calder. I'm just going to say that's an at-work task. So now that we've sorted the inbox, we go from the bottom up through areas of responsibility and active projects to determine the full set of stuff that we need to do.
So, do you follow his 2-minute rule? You know what he keeps talking about. If something is just quick, I mean, 2 minutes is just like a number, but like this sending email, sometimes you don't really have to have it as a task.
Yes.
You just do it.
Yes, but I'm not going to write that email right now.
Yes.
So,
okay, and that's why you would. Okay.
Yeah. So what Hussam is talking about is this, and this is the general framework by which you decide where stuff goes and what you do. So stuff goes into the in-basket, which is the inbox. What is it? Is it actionable? If it's not, you make a determination of, do I ever really need to do this? If not, trash it. Someday maybe like, oh, you know, some random idea that maybe I want to hold on to, just like throw that over there, or it becomes what he refers to as a reference material, which is just like, you know, a magazine article or something like that. If it is actionable, what's the next step? If it's less than 2 minutes, do it. So if it is an email or something, it's amazing how much I feel like I have to force myself to do those 2-minute tasks. You know, it's so easy to be like, oh, email, you know, like create that little task, put it in the inbox. No, just do those things and you'll get a tremendous amount of stuff off your plate. If it's not actionable, delegate it or defer it. Or in my case, in most people's cases, if it's something that's part of a chain of events, it becomes part of the project. So kind of with that said,
Now, do you mind if I add in? Can I do my stuff on why? So here's the advance off the script stuff of getting things done. So here's what you can do if you have got your life such that your productivity is on rails, which this stuff allows you to do, gives you a framework to kind of move through your life and be effective. When that's happening, in between the is it actionable and doing something, you get to ask a really interesting question, which is, as I mentioned, and probably obvious to you now, like, why am I doing it? So this, for me, I use email as the simplest example of that, right? Why am I getting this email? And I genuinely ask that question, and as a result, occasionally it causes me to unsubscribe from the spam I'm getting. A lot of time I get email, I'm using this as a simple example. Why am I getting this? Is it valuable? I unsubscribe. If it's something I'm getting a lot, like Hussam emailing me 50 times about when the Foundry starts, nothing, I'm teasing, right?
There, it's got to be 50 or the 51st.
Or a common one, I won't use this one, is the, Rob, I'd love to have 5 minutes, is my classic one. Rob, I just want 5 minutes of your time to tell you about a business idea that I have. It'll only take 5 minutes, and it'll be awesome, and I know you're going to love it, and we'll take it to the next level, thanks, right? Google allows you to have, so I have Google allows you to create little templates, email response templates. You know about this in Google? What are they called? Canned responses, thank you. So this is, again, don't get hung up on what it is. Understand the underlying heuristic. So there's a canned response. I pull it down called 5-minute meeting. I'd probably show you if we were here. I'd show you. It says, hey, can't wait to talk to you. And I love talking to people about their business ideas. In fact, that's what the School of Business pays me to do. I'm happy to meet with you. Follow this link to a Google Calendar, which has my open office hours. Schedule open office hours with me. It takes me 11 seconds to do it, and if I delegated my email or filtered it appropriately, I can have an assistant handle every single one of them, because my goal is to be really responsive via email and have every person who interacts with me feel good about the experience. I try and fail to do that, but no one's confused about the fact that I'm trying. Right? So the why gives me an opportunity to delete. It gives me the opportunity to create a canned response, e.g. get leverage. So there are many things to do. I got this thing and I shouldn't do it. I'm going to make sure that it never comes again. I'm going to get leverage and do it and have a canned response. I'm going to figure out why I'm getting this message. So in the case of the when does the Foundry start, that means something is broken upstream in the Foundry process that people can't find out questions like that and feel that they need to contact me to get answers to them. As a manager, by the way, so this is the higher order piece, as a manager, when you take over a team, the amount of interaction you should be doing with your team is this much, because your team doesn't know what to do and you don't know what to do with the team. Ideally, you want your communication with your team to drop to almost zero and be utterly routinized. Why? Because then your team is working and doesn't believe that it needs you anymore to function. And when that happens, you can then go to your boss and go, you can replace me, you can fire me, which is the only way you actually advance in a company, is when you reduce the need for your existence to zero. I find that to be the most powerful career-advancing technology possible, is when you take over a role that looks so complicated, called manager, vice president of development, or vice president of product, right? And at the time, the release cycle is broken, no one knows how to do anything, we don't have any testing for the code, it's all broken. And 9 months later, your email isn't ringing off the hook, everyone knows what to do, and your job is superfluous, because you've made everyone CEO of the product, so now the product just evolves on its own, and you can fire yourself. You no longer need to exist. That makes you the most powerful and potent manager. So the opportunity for getting rigorous around the day-to-day process is beginning to ask questions about why you are doing something, and then something that both Tim Ferriss and David, whatever his name is, David Allen fail on, is this issue that managers do all the time, which is they delegate shitty downstream work to their staff. Yes. Right? So you want to have a why step here, because you ask yourself, why am I delegating this? Am I delegating a broken process to some other lower paid person? Right? The notion of needing a virtual assistant, consider, right? Why do you need a virtual assistant? Because you haven't got your meetings and all the other stuff handled. So you think you're going to solve that problem by hiring a $1.75 an hour person in the Philippines to read your email. Why not do something more insane, which is create an environment which no one emails you? My personal goal is eventually to have an email address that I never bother to check. Right? That's a crazy goal, right? It can never happen. It's not possible. But do you see the underlying mechanism is not to get good at delegating, it's to get good at disappearing work. So getting things done is about making work disappear, not getting more effective at, once you get good at throughput, you can ask questions about why. Why am I doing this at all?
I've never met an executive or a successful founder at the highest levels that got where they were because they were a good delegator.
Yep.
They were good at
doers.
doing work.
They're good at doing work and inventing ways to make work disappear. Being super lazy, right? So you can make an entire collection of work disappear. So in the area of software, for example, I resolved the problem of having to worry about having quality control and testing by embedding quality control and testing into the development process. So we released software that was defect-free because we built processes that generated defect-free software. Right? That, and that is why I am paid to do what I do, which is to make complicated problems disappear.
So just to kind of wrap things up here.
Yeah. So this is why the GTD thing is great, is because if you get really good at this, then you can start asking why questions, right? It's like painting the fence. Mr. Miyagi has you paint the fence 100 times so that you can do the work. Sorry, I overwhelmed you.
No. So in 5 minutes every morning, I go through this bottom-up process and don't get hung up on what are areas and what are active projects. Areas are just kind of buckets. They're just like your filing system. Projects are actually chains of tasks that need to happen, like, relaunching the website. That's not a task. That is a project that's filled with a bunch of distinct tasks. So we just go up. Like, I've got an area for calls. I don't have any immediate ones. Grocery. I don't need to buy stuff because I'm run out of town. Read and review for friends, family, work number. I do not need to do that. Bunch of stuff at computer. Pretty much looks like none of this is immediate. None of this is what I need to do right now. And frankly, if it was, I'd put it in the project before I put it in an area of responsibility. So we go through the areas. Say there's nothing that, maybe let's see. Yeah, okay. There's nothing I need to do there. Then we go through the projects and we do the same exercise. So we're involved with this iPad project. There's a bunch of tasks here, but this is a longer term thing. It's not something I immediately need to do. I'm going on a motorcycle trip tomorrow. I do need to figure out how I'm going to get to Atlantic City, so I'm going to throw that in today. This is how we kind of start to compile what ultimately becomes the list of stuff that we need to do today. You'll see the other 3 are yellow, which signifies they're already in today. Put the inside sales plan in action, set up a landing page with a homepage video. I need to do that, but there's no way I'm going to get it done tomorrow because I'm going to be on the plane, so I'll revisit that before my interview. Relaunching the site, I've still got to produce all the content tonight.
Do it.
Keep selling, reach out to SAP Guide. So if you recall from my OKRs, I had one in there that was reach out to all active prospects. This was that, so these were all the folks that I reached out to. This one I'm going to hold on because it just isn't ready yet. Then email 5 people to interview. Done. That's great. So here's today. It's what remains of today. So I've got the website project with all the remaining content, planning my motorcycle trip, that needs to get done, and then the email from the VC guy who's waiting on a little piece of information from me to make some introductions. So I'm probably going to reorder this just a little bit from a project standpoint. The motorcycle thing, I am leaving no matter what happens tomorrow morning, so I'm just going to put that at the top so that it reorders those items right after my email back to Doug. But this represents the remainder of today. And when I get up tomorrow morning, I will go through the exact same exercise. I'll start with the inbox. There will probably be some tickets in there that I create tonight. Go through the areas, go through projects, and end up with a list of things that will be my focus for the day. And the last step, as I kind of just did there a little bit, is to make sure that your today is actually prioritized based on how you think you should actually get everything done. So I don't need to talk more about GTD. If you're interested in it, there's a book. This app is called Things. It's available to the Mac and please Evernote, and there's resources to how to conform GTD to Evernote. But it's a hell of a lot more than just simply to-do list management. It really will help you get your life in order to do more work better. So just to recap, talked about what we do on a quarterly basis, the plan, establishing quarterly OKRs, what we do on a weekly basis, weekly OKRs, and a full weekly GTD review. I didn't really talk about that, but it's basically the notion of going back here and going through everything, and in particular deleting stuff that you know is just sitting there that you're never going to file into somewhere. And then finally, where I think a lot of, and this is why I focus so much on GTD is, if you talk with a lot of startup guys who are like, Lean or OKRs even or whatever, like at best, OKR is going to bring it down to the week. And I think a lot of organizations don't even bring it down that far. They kind of keep it at the quarterly level. But the reality is that if we're actually going to be getting shit done, we need to know what we need to do on a daily basis. And for me, GTD is kind of the final mile or whatever they call it in like the cable business, right? Like from the curb to the house. That's how actually getting stuff done. So I'm happy to provide any of these resources, notes, whatever, this presentation if you guys are interested. I guess just to wrap up, I think the keys to our success so far, and this is certainly an evolving process for us. As I said, we just decided that Google Spreadsheets don't work. We need to print them out and put them on board in front of everyone's face. Sticking to our scheduled meetings and reviews, in particular, to Rob's point of if you are a leader in any capacity, even if you're not, you should not suffer a process whereby you and your group do not get together on a regular basis with a specific agenda of what you're going to be doing. CEO founder needs to be the owner of the process, ultimately, in particular for the plan and the OKRs, or a team leader, like in our case with the Notebook Company. Thomas is the CEO. He's just sitting in and kind of hear what we're going to do. I was the team leader, so I owned the process, creation of the plan, drafting OKRs, and ultimately modify it so it works for you and your group. Don't be afraid to change things up and kind of throw things out. So, anyways, I know that's a lot of detail. We're all running on low sugar, but
Yeah, I think that the high points here, the intersection between getting things done, which is a publicly available, known, studyable, internet available, book-driven process for task management, which you can either use or replace with some other daily task-oriented thing, with this other semi-mysterious, not really on the internet, not really well talked about OKR material. In fact, if you find in the process of your journeys documentation on the OKR process that's publicly available, other than where I find it, which is usually listening to interviews or analyst calls, or I listened to an interview last week with Jack Dorsey, between Jack Dorsey, the founder of Square and Twitter, and Fred Wilson, a venture capitalist, where 14 minutes in, he sort of kind of talks about using OKRs and instrumentation for like a minute or 2 minutes and then goes off, and you realize that all the, it's just, the reason it's not talked about in detail is it's just taken as given by startup founders that this stuff is used, and I'm just shocked that there's not much out there training-wise on the internet. We use this material at the Foundry regularly, but I've never found any material online, and if you find it or know about it, I would love to. And if you also run into, now that you'll be listening for it, if you look at interviews or blog posts or analyst calls or some other things where people talk about them, even reference them sort of haphazardly, I would love to know about that too, because it's always really curious to me why this technology, this OKR technology, is largely hidden behind the velvet rope and just not discussed. This has been your experience?
No, the whole reason, I ended up writing a blog post on it. I was thinking about writing like a little pamphlet kind of book on it, just because there are no publicly accessible resources. And like if you read, for those who have read GTD, my impression was like, wow, this is insanely logical and simple, right? To an obvious degree. It's like if you actually sat down, if you took a week off and figured, what is a process by which I can better organize my life and get more stuff done, chances are you probably come within 90 to 95% of what GTD is with data down. With OKRs, it's just absolutely nothing on the internet. Mark Pincus talks about it a lot. John Doerr, the only reason we implemented this company is because John was on the board of my partner when he was running a company called Freelance.
Yep. And I only interacted with it when I was about to get fired from a company where people actually learned how to do it at Oracle, right? And I think the folks at Oracle learned how to do it from the guys at Intel, Andy Gross insistence. So it's just sort of a strange, passed down by hand experience, Did any of you use anything like OKRs in your organization? I think, where do you work at?
Sort of. We we're software, right? We use like that and a lot of the stuff you're saying is
like agile methods. The software world, they don't even know, the rest of the world doesn't even realize, the software guys are just like, oh yeah, Pivotal Tracker, that's what we use for...
So, yeah, and why software is an interesting problem or a wicked problem where these things have to get solved is you're attempting to build software for computing platforms that don't exist yet, for chipsets that don't exist yet, for problems that are ill-specified. using code that's evolving, so it's highly, highly uncertain. And as a result, figuring out how to wrangle and develop software is an area where this issue is most keenly felt. And so there's a fair amount of technologies, Agile being one of them, where it's attempting to do that. And GDD is an attempt to kind of abstract above the software level. And OKRs are really puzzling because if you think about it, a large business is struggling too with sales. How is it that you set sales targets like achieve 13 million and then have your sales guys go out and get that, right? It's deeply ambiguous. And yet, despite that, sales guys are incredibly structured in terms of their pipeline and lead management. So you have this interesting paradox in all the places that really matter: killing people, war, selling things, right, making the company work, shipping software on time. There's this strange paradox between this incredibly uncertain environment and this desire to create rigorous, very simple techniques to manage it.
I think, just perhaps as a parting note, I think when you really boil it down with OKRs, it really just is about having people once a week thinking about what their objectives are, how that relates to the objectives of the whole company, and getting everyone together to actually review it. It's really it's a framework by which you get everyone around the table and have a level set communication about what people are working on and is it important. And that's it. Because most of this stuff falls by the wayside, especially I've never worked for a large company, but at least in startups, everyone's running around with their head cut off because there's so much stuff to do, and none of it, 90% of it is like you shouldn't be focusing on it. Just it's missing the blood or the plan or the order. It's certainly not being beneficial. So, anyways,
Thanks.
thank you.
To hearing how you think that would happen. As I mentioned, I have one final thing, and I think if it's okay, we'll close for the evening. We are about to, I don't need to do this. So there's nothing more complicated. So this right here is my 2013 OKRs, right? So the reason I share this with you is just in the same way that I talk about instrumentation and dashboarding and saying it's important to do and I can't talk about it and try to talk my book. This is how I run my day-to-day life across all the different roles that I have as a writer, a researcher, a teacher, an athlete, my community, how I handle my finances, how I advance my career, my personal life, my family, my dogs, and a set of benchmarks that help me figure out whether or not I'm getting where I want to go. And I just share that with you to just suggest that this stuff is a long-term, that document that you just saw, the format, that's the same format since 1999. I've been using that format since, actually 98, since I started doing them. And I'm not saying this isn't a conversation where it's like, be like me or I have it all figured out. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm trying to say is the process through which you begin to be thinking about being effective is a process that's not a default conversation in the world. The default conversations in the world are about how I am already effective and about how I suppose what I did was really effective. Whatever I did in the past shows that evidence that I'm really awesome, as opposed to the conversations that I get to generate with myself and my community, which is I try to set large, ambitious goals, I measure them carefully, and then have an interesting conversation that explores the gap between my intention and my action. My intent is to write field-shaping papers. My action is I spend 400 hours every semester looking at cat photos, 400 hours a year looking at cat photos on the internet when I'm at the desk, right? And it's that unavoidable tension in life that allows you to reduce that gap and creates opportunities for you to just continue to improve, right? Because the important part of developing this is abstractable beyond being a BA student. It's abstractable to thinking about how to manage your career. That's basically it. And I just wanted to let you know that I'm in the same boat, right, as everyone else around this stuff, which is like I have great intentions, and then my actions don't measure up to that. And the interesting conversation is one where you have the emotional resilience and stability to handle looking and staring at the gap between what you say you're going to do and what you did, and look at that gap and be clear exactly and precisely what that gap is, and then work with your community to close it. So, you know, if you're the mean of the 5 people that you hang out with the most, maybe now would be a good time to think about how you can hang out with 5 people. Like in my case, Cameron and I are part of a community of people that are working to get better at this stuff. And that's kind of the last thought I had. So next week I bring you guys a panel, right? And I'm gonna do what I can. No guarantees, but I'm gonna try also to bring in food with the panel. I'll let you know at least a day in advance, so we'll know whether there's gonna be food. And we're gonna talk about entrepreneurial finance. And you guys should be preparing to share with your community the following 2 weeks. So we have 3 weeks left, right? 1 week is panel. The next 2 weeks are opportunities for you to get up in public and eviscerate yourselves like I do with my instrumentation, to go, look, we tried to do this, and this is what we learned, right? And we'll all be able to get better in the process. So with that, I'm going to start.